Hello guys, and welcome to the 7th episode of the Discord.net mob development series. In this episode we are going to work with image generation in C#. The image you see right now is an image generated with the Discord bot that we are working on. So in this episode you're going to learn how you can make an image on your own, how to change the background and make it just like you want it. If you like this episode, don't forget to leave a like and comment any form of feedback, as it is appreciated. If you need any additional help, make sure to check the description down below, as there's a link to our Discord server where you can ask any form of questions and we will help you. Now let's get started. Now, in order to generate images with our Discord bot, there are two more libraries that we need to install. So let's first go to Tools, then go to Nuget Package Manager, and then Manage Nuget Packages for Solution. Now here you want to search for system.drawing. Press enter, and here we have two packages that we're going to need. The first one is the system drawing common package, and install this one for the template or whatever the name of your project is with the Discord bot, and then install the library. The second library we need is the system drawing primitives. Accept the license, and there we go. Now we have all the libraries that we need, so we can get started with some coding. So let's create a new folder inside of the template project. So add and then folder, and let's call this one utilities. Now inside this folder we want to create a new class, and let's call this class images, because this is the class that we will use in order to generate the image. The first thing we want to create is a task, one single task that does everything for us. So we'll make one task which executes multiple tasks. So we make a nice image, we make the circles, get the profile picture, put it in there, but one task will do all of that and then give us the image. So here what we do, first things first, is we make the class public. Now in here we make the one single task that will do everything for us. So public async task. We want the return type of this task to be a string, because we want the task to give us the path of the image, so we can then send it to the user. Now let's call this task create image async. The next thing we want to do is we want to pass in the socket guild user and then call this user, and that's basically it. So we have a task which we need to first import the using system threading tasks, so we can use tasks. Then the return type of this task is a string which will give us a path, and then we have a method called create image async which only needs a socket guild user as parameter to create a nice image. Now the first method that we want to create, in which this task will execute, is a task that's able to fetch an image from the internet. So a task that will give us an image based upon an URL. So we can use a background URL or pass in the avatar and then get the image from there. And for that we need a separate task which is able to return an image from a URL. In order to do this, let's make a private asynchronous task with a return type of image, and let's call this fetch image async. And then the parameter should be the string of a URL, because we want to get the URL and then pass in the image as return type. Again, press the light bulb here and say using system drawing. Now inside of this task we want to make something that's able to get an image from a URL and then give it to us. Now let's first start with making a new client. So var client equals new HTTP client, like this. And then we also want a variable that says var response equals await client get async and then the URL. So this calls the client, and then with the client it fetches the URL that we've passed in here. Now if the response of this request is not a success, then we want to return an image that we have predefined, so that it will never have no background image. It will always have a background image, but if it just fails to get the URL or something goes wrong, there should be a backup background image that you can use. So in order to do this, we say exclamation mark response and then is success status code, which means that the response failed and there was some error and it didn't work out perfectly. So here we can define a standard background URL that we want. Now, what I always do is I go to my browser and I go to unsplash.com and I use a picture from this website as a background. Now, why do I use this website? In my opinion, this website is one of the greatest websites in regards of non-copyright pictures that I have ever seen. You can use these images without using any form of copyright notice. These are non-copyright images. So here what we can search for is just something that we like. In my case, I'll just use nature, and then here we want to say any orientation and change it to landscape. Now let's search for something that's nice as a background. For example, this one would do perfectly fine. And then what we want to do is you want to right click it and then say copy image address. It will give you a URL. Some URLs might also have .png at the end. That's fine as long as it's an image that it will lead to. So when I go to this link, it will instantly render an image. Go back to Visual Studio, and here what we want to do is say the var backup response equals await client.get async, and then the URL that we just copied. Then the var backup stream equals await backup response dot content dot read as stream async. So what this does is it reads the image from here and converts it into stream. Now, why do we need a stream? Is because with a stream, we can convert something to an image. We can't just return this because this will just give it some form of HTML or something else, but not the image. We need to actually return an image. And in order to do so, we need a stream. So with the stream, we can say return image and then from stream and then the backup stream that we just created. So what this does is it will search for this URL, so get the image that we just picked from the website, then create a stream of the response, and then the stream will be converted into an image and then be returned. Now, if the response was a success, so the early return statement wasn't called because there was a success, the is success status code is true, in that case, we want to create a new stream, so var stream equals await response dot content dot read as stream asynchronously. Then when we have the stream, we want to return this as an image from the task. So we say return image dot from stream and then the stream. So a quick recap, what this does is the first thing it does is it creates a new HTTP client. Then with the HTTP client, we send a GET request to the URL that was passed in. And this might sound all very difficult, but it isn't really. So what it then does is if the response fails, so if the URL is wrong, if something just throws an error and something goes wrong, it will do this. It will run our backup code. So in that case, it will get the backup background that we have. It will convert the response into a stream and then return an image based upon that. And then if it does succeed and nothing goes wrong and it works perfectly fine, in that case, it will get a stream from the response here and then convert that stream into an image. So we have the image right here. Now, when we've created this function, we can go back into our create image async and say var avatar equals await, then fetch image async, and then we want to get the avatar URL of the person that was provided. Now here the funny thing is we can define a few variables. We can say what the size of the image should be. We want the highest resolution, so we use 2048. And we can also define what kind of format we want, and we want to use the format of image format .png because we want to have a PNG file which can be transparent and is perfect. Now there is also a chance that people don't have a profile picture. For example, if we go to Discord right here, we see that the Discord bot doesn't even have a profile picture. This is a default profile picture from Discord. So if this is nothing, we can again use the null coalescing operator and then say user.get default avatar URL. So what this does is it will try to get the avatar URL by normal ways. So if the user has a custom avatar, it will just fetch this one. But if this is nothing, then it will just use the default avatar URL. Now the second thing we want is a background. So we say var background equals await fetch image async, Then in here we say the background URL that we want. And this can be a custom background URL per server, which we can also implement with our database, which is not something we're going to do right now. We might do it later, but for now, here what we want to pass in is a custom URL for background. Now we already picked one right here as our backup one, so we can just stick with this one. But if you want to customize this later on, you can just pass in a different URL in here or fetch something from the database. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty easy to customize. Now we need to create a new function, and this function is called crop to banner. Basically what this means is that we want to grab this background that we have and we want to crop it to a banner as our background for the Discord image. So in order to do this, we want to create a private static bitmap and then crop to banner. And in here we want to pass an image, because this will return an image from right here. So in here we want to pass in an image, and we're going to call this image. Curly brackets, and inside here what we first want to do is we want to store the width and the height of the background into a separate variable. So we say var original width equals image.width and var original height equals image.height. So now we have the width and the height of the image stored into a variable. Then here what we want to do is we want to convert this background into a different size. And in order to do this, we want to create a new variable and call this var destination size. And here we say equals a new size. And here we can convert it to any size that we like. I'm going to stick with 1100450. So it will convert it to 1100 by 450. The next thing that we want is to calculate the ratio of the height and the width. So in order to do this, we say var and then the height ratio equals, and then this should be casted to a float. So we say 2 parentheses float and then original height divided by the destination size dot height. Then the width ratio should be the width ratio equals, again, cast this to a float, and say original width divided by the destination size dot width. So this will calculate the height ratio and the width ratio based upon the original height and the destination height. Same goes for the width. Now what we want is to calculate the ratio of both the height ratio and the width ratio. So in order to do this, we say var ratio equals math, then min, and then the height ratio divided by the width ratio. So what min does is it returns the smaller of 2 single precision float point numbers. A more basic explanation is it picks the value that has the lowest value. So for example, if this height ratio is 500 and the width ratio is 400, it will return width ratio, so 400. Now another thing we want is we want to calculate the scale of the height and the width. And here what we do is we create 2 new variables. We say var height scale equals convert to int 32 and then the destination size dot height times the ratio that we calculated earlier. And the same goes for the width scale. So width scale equals convert to int 32 destination size dot width times the ratio. Now this means that it will convert and calculate the scale of the height that we want times the ratio, which will calculate how many times we have to increase or decrease the height and how many times we have to increase or decrease the width. Then last but not least, we say var start x equals original width minus the width scale divided by 2, and the var start I equals the original height minus the height scale divided by 2. Now we can actually start making and working with some functions. We say var source rectangle equals a new rectangle which uses the start x that we just provided, then the start y that we just made, and here we can use the scale, the width scale and the height scale. Next we say var bitmap equals a new bitmap which has the destination size width and the destination size height. And last and almost not least is var destination rectangle equals new rectangle, then a 0, 0 bitmap width and bitmap height. Now excuse me that I didn't explain what all of this does. It's pretty complicated, but what happens here is we create a new rectangle based upon the original width and height. Then we create a new bitmap based upon the destination size. And then finally we create a destination rectangle which is based upon the destination size. What this means is we want to convert a background which could have any form of size to a high quality background to use for our image. And the best way to do this is by using skills, exact calculations, difficult calculations, and in the end create an image in the background on a destination rectangle which is such a high quality that it just looks good regardless of what the size of the background image is. So the last thing we want to do is we want to draw the background image that we passed in here and then convert it into a resized background. And in order to do this, let's first say using var g equals graphics from image and then the bitmap, so the image that we created, and then we say g dot interpolation mode equals interpolation mode dot high quality cubic, because we want to interpolate this at the highest quality possible. We want no quality to go away, we want everything to stay nice and good. Then the last thing we want to do is say g.draw image. Then we have the image that we passed in all the way here. Then we want to draw it onto the destination rectangle. We want to draw it from the source rectangle, and it should all have the graphics unit of pixels. So graphics unit dot pixel. Then last but not least, we return the bitmap that we created. So we say return bitmap, and this allows us to then finally use the image with the create image async function. So in the create image async function now, what we say is the background equals crop to banner and then background. So it crops the background to the banner, and then we can start working and doing more with it. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to clip the avatar to a circle. So it looks nicely, it looks like a circle, and then we can put that circle onto the background. In order to do this, we need to create another function, unfortunately. But to do this, we create a new function, and we call this function a private image clip image to circle. And as parameter, we want an image, and we call this again image. Now in this function, the first thing we do is we say image and then the destination equals a new bitmap and then the image width, the image height, and finally the image pixel format. So we convert the image that we pass in here to a new bitmap and then store it into image destination. Next, what we say is we say var radius, so the radius of the image is the width of the image divided by 2. So we get the radius of the image. The radius is the diameter of a circle divided by 2. It's the amount of, for example, centimeters that is between exactly the center of the circle and the outside of the circle. So if you have a circle of 8 centimeters, that's a diameter of 8 centimeters. And if you divide it by 2, you get the radius, which is 4 centimeters. That's what we calculate right here. Then we also want the x and y values. So we say var x equals the image width also divided by 2, and the y is the image height divided by 2. This is the exact center of the image. Now we say using graphics g equals graphics from image and then the destination, because we want to use graphics that we got from the image and then use it onto the destination. So we say here var r equals a new rectangle which has the x minus the radius and the y also minus the radius. Then the width and height of the image should be the radius times 2, so the diameter, and the height exactly the same, radius times 2. Next, we use a few variables. We say g.interpolation mode again equals interpolation mode dot high quality bicubic. Then the g.compositioning quality should also be compositioning high quality, so the highest quality that we can use. Now let's indent this properly, just like this. That explains. Then we also want to set the pixel offset mode, and we set the pixel offset mode to high quality. So we set every option that we can to high quality. Also, g.smoothing mode should be anti-alias, so we don't have these weird looking things. We just want to let this be anti-alias. And now, since I use this short way, it suggests me to get rid of all of this. So let's get rid of all the system drawing 2D, and let's make it like this. Looks a lot more cleaner. And then we use a using statement, and then we say using a brush, call this brush, equals a new solid brush, and then with the color transparent. Now in here, in this using statement, what we do is we say g.fill rectangle. Then as the brush, we provide the brush that we just created. As the rectangle, we just say 0, 0. So the x and the y should be 0, 0. And the width should be the destination.width and the destination.height. Just like that. Then we create a new variable called path, and in this path we store a new graphics path, just like that. Now inside of the path we create a new ellipse, so path.add ellipse, and we add the R inside of it, so the rectangle that we created right here, we pass it in the ellipse inside of the path. We say g.setClip, and then we pass in the path. Then it should draw the image, which is the image that was passed all the way at the start, and then use x and y to be 0 and 0. Finally, we say return the destination, so it returns the image that we now have created. Now, a quick recap. I'm sorry that I don't explain every single thing what we do, because this is a lot more complicated than it actually looks maybe. So the first thing we do is we create a new image, which is the destination image. And the destination image is a new bitmap, which is the width and the height of the image that was passing. It's basically exactly the same format as we have used at the image right here. Then we create three variables, the radius, the x and the y. The radius is the image width divided by 2. So the diameter divided by 2 equals the radius. And then the x and y equals the exact center of the image, the width and the height divided by 2. Then we use a using statement right here with graphics g, and we get that graphics from image of the destination. So we get the format and everything from the destination. Now we create a new variable, which is a rectangle, and the rectangle has the x of the image width divided by 2, so the center, minus the radius of the image. And the y is the y minus the radius, and then the width and the height are the radius times 2, so the diameter. Then we set a lot of properties to get the highest quality possible. So we use interpolation modes, compositing quality, and pixel offset mode all on high quality, and smoothing mode on anti-alias. Then we make a new brush in a using statement, and we make it a transparent brush. We create a new rectangle and fill it with the transparent color. And then finally, we put in the image onto the transparent rectangle, which is at the end a circle. Then, last but not least, we return the circle, which has the image on it transparently. The image is a rectangle, but the part that is a circle is made transparent. So it looks like a circle while it in fact just is a rectangle. Now let's go back to the create image async function. Let's add a nice space between the background and that we make the cropped banner background. And let's here say the avatar is now clip image to circle, and then the avatar, so we get a nice circle of our avatar. Next, what we say is we say var bitmap equals a avatar as the bitmap, so we convert the avatar into a bitmap and store it into a variable. Now if the bitmap is not null, which is exactly what we do here, bitmap question mark means that if the bitmap is not null, then it should make the bitmap transparent. So we are 100% sure that the avatar is transparent. Now here we need to make another function. We need to make a function that copies a region into an image. We need to do so because we want to convert our banner. So the entire image is called a banner. We want to put avatar onto the background. So we can then do some nice stuff with it, all that kind of stuff. So what we do in this case is we go all the way down on the clip image circle. So here we make a new function and we say private image copy region into image. Then here we pass in an image and we call this source, and we pass an image and then we call this the destination. So the source will be the avatar and the background will be the destination. So we put the avatar, the source, onto the destination, the background. So here what we do is we create a new using statement. So we say using var grd equals a new graphics from image and then the destination, because we want to put the avatar on the background, not the background on the avatar. So we put the background as our background. Now we use X and Y to calculate the exact center of our image. In order to do this, we say var X equals the destination, so the destination dot width divided by 2, and then that minus 110. That's the exact center of an image when you think about, for example, that we transformed the circle image into a specific size. And because if you have the exact center of an image, then it will put the top of the image at the center, but that will result in the image more looking like it's on the bottom than actually on the center. So we also want to use the X value and then minus that with half of the image. So we say the background width divided by 2, which is exactly the width, but then also minus the width of the image, which is minus 110. And the same goes for var y, and we say destination.height, so destination.height divided by 2, but then in this case we use minus 155. So it again puts it exactly in the center, but then minus 155, so actually on the center and not on the top, or something like that. And last but not least is we say grd.drawImage, and we grab the avatar, and then we put it on the X and the Y that we just created, and with the width and height of 220, just like this. Now what this does is it grabs the GRD that we have right here, so it grabs the background, and then on the background it puts the avatar of the person, the source, on the positions X and Y that we defined right here, with the width and height of 220 by 220. Then finally we say return destination. Now we can go all the way back up here and make a new line on the bitmap make transparent. And here we say var banner equals a copy region into image. Then we pass in the bitmap and we pass in the background. So we grab the bitmap that we have right here from the avatar, we pass it into here, and we pass also the background in there, so it copies the avatar onto the background. Next, what we say is we want to make a function that draws the text on the banner with some stuff that we like to put on it. But before doing so, we need to actually download a font that I'll be using in this episode, and that font is called Roboto. So go to your browser and go to Google Fonts. And here you want to search for Roboto, and then click on the first one you find. On the right, click on Download Family, open up the zip, and temporarily what you want to do is grab all of the files, put them on your desktop, get rid of the license, select all of the files, right click them and say install for all users or just install. I'm going to go with install for all users, let it install all the fonts, then close the zip and you can get rid of all the files. Now go back to Visual Studio, and now we can actually use and make a function that uses the font Roboto. So let's go down and let's go all the way down under copy region into image. And here what we're going to make is we make a new function. We're going to call this private image draw text to image. Then we pass in the image that we want to write the text on, and we have two text types that we want to have. We want to have a header, so like a big text, and we want to have a subheader, like a bit smaller text. So we have two strings, which is a header and the subheader. So what we say here is we say a string header and string subheader. we use two curly brackets and make a new function. And in here, the first thing we say is we have a smaller font and we have a bigger font. The smaller font for the subheader and the bigger font for the header. We want to separate these two fonts into separate variables. So we say var roboto, which is going to be our main font, so the bigger one. We say var roboto equals new font and roboto, which is the font family, the size, which I'm going to use 30, and the font style, which I'm going to use regular. The other thing is var roboto small, so the subheader font. So we say equals new font, again roboto, but in this case we're going to use a size of 23, and again the same font style. So font style regular. Then here what we want to do is we want to make two brushes. One brush that's going to be white for the header, another brush that is going to be grayish for the subheader. So here what we do is say var brush white equals new solid brush, and then it should have the color of white. And we have a brush gray, which is going to be a new solid brush. But then here we're going to pass in a custom hex, and which is going to be a custom gray hex. In order to pass in a custom hex, what you can do is you can say color translator dot from HTML and then the hex code. The hex I'm going to use is hashtag be3, be3, be3. So be3, 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 which equals a nice gray color. Next, we want to have the coordinates of the header and the subheader. So here we say var header x, it's the x coordinate of the header, equals the image width divided by 2. So the center. Then the var header y, so the position where it should be in the height, is 2 brackets, and then between brackets image.height divided by 2, and then plus 115, which is a custom coordinate that I like for the header to be. Then we also want to have the coordinates of the subheader, and for that we're going to use subheader x equals the image width divided by 2. It should be horizontally centered. And then the var subheader y, which is where it should be in the height, is the brackets image height divided by 2 and then plus 160. So there's a nice space between the header and the subheader. Now we need to make a kind of new draw format, which we give some properties. So the first thing to start with is a draw format variable. So var draw format equals a new string format, and in here we can pass a few arguments. The first one is line alignment, and I want that one to be string alignment center. So string alignment dot center. This means that instead of just calculating the x but then using minus or plus to actually center it, we can just use string alignment center, which means that it will print but then exactly center the text on the x coordinate, meaning that we don't need to do, for example, what we did here, minus a specific amount of text. The second thing we want to do is we want to say alignment equals string alignment dot center. So as well the line as well as the stranded alignment are both centered. Then here you want to use a semicolon to end it, then again use a new bracket so it doesn't error. Then make a new line, and here we can finally draw the text on the image. So we say a new using statement using var grd equals graphics from image, and then the image, so the banner that we have, and then we use a using statement to create a new graphics from the banner. Then we use grd text rendering hint equals, and then text rendering hint dot anti-alias grid fit. Now this makes sure that there's no weird looking text. It looks really nice when we use this setting. And then finally what we can do is we can use the GRD that we created earlier and say draw string. So we finally actually go and write some stuff. And then in the header, so we write the header, so the variable, the string that was passed as the header, we write something with the roboto font, which is the thing that we created all the way on the top. And we want to write this with the white brush, so brush white. And it should be on the coordinates of header X and header Y. And finally, last but not least, we want to pass in the draw format so it nicely centers all of our text. Now that's not everything. We also want to write our subheader. So just copy this line, paste it, and then replace header with subheader, which is our second text, and replace brush white with brush gray, roboto with roboto small, and then header X and header Y with subheader X and subheader Y. So now all the text is nicely being drawn on side of the image. And last but not least, what we want to do, var img equals new bitmap based upon the image. And then we can just return the image that we've generated with the text on it. Now, if we go all the way back here towards the banner, what we now can use is the functions that we made, the draw text to image function, in order to write some text on our image. So what we can do here is, because it is a function that's used in order to like send a nice image when a user joins our server, what we can do here is we can say banner equals draw text to image, and now we can pass in some arguments. The first argument is going to be the image, and the image is going to be the banner that we just created right here. Then the header that we want is, we want to say $, and then a string, then the user dot username, and then the hashtag, and then the user dot discriminator, just like that, and then joined the server. Now we also want to pass in a subheader, and for the subheader we say member hashtag, and then here we provide the amount of members that's in the server. So what we say here, curly brackets, and inside of them we say user.guild.member count. So it will nicely show how many members are now in the server. And now, last but not least, we want to save the image that we made into our system. So we say string path equals the $, string, and then inside the string curly brackets, and we say GUID dot new GUID as a function dot PNG, and then a semicolon at the end. Then what we want to do is we say banner, so the image that we made, dot save into our path, just like that. And then finally what we say is we say return await task.from result, and then the path. And that's basically it. Now we have a working function that is capable of creating images. And then at the end, when this function is called, it gives us a path of our image. Now let's put this to use. Let's go to example module and let's make a command and see if this works. Let's just call the command image, just like this, and say public async task image, no arguments. Actually, let's put an argument there. Let's say socket guild user. Now inside of here, what we can do is we can use the function that we made earlier, images. But before doing so, we again need to use the dependency injection to be able to use all of the methods. So first things first, what we do here is we say private read-only images, and then underscore images. And then we go here into the constructor and we say images, and finally we say here underscore images equals images. Now we also need to go to our program.cs, go all the way down, and let's create a new line right here, and then say add singleton, and then images. This allows us to dependency inject the images class. Now let's go back to the example module. Now we can actually use the functions. So what we can do here is we can say var path equals await, and then underscore images dot create image async, and we want to pass in the user that was mentioned. Then what we want to do is say await context.channel.send file asynchronously, then the path, and just like that, what we can do is we can send the image. Now, because we don't want to clutter our entire folder, we also want to delete the image after it has been sent. In order to do so, what you can do is you can say file.delete and then the path. So it will also delete exactly the image when it has been sent. Now, before actually running our Discord bot, there's one important thing that we need to do too. Now, this process can take a lot of time. And because it takes a lot of time, if people try to execute a different command, the image command would first need to be executed before people can execute other commands. So people would need to have to wait. And that's horrible. We don't want something like that to happen. We want people to be instantly able to use any commands. There should be no problem. There should be no waiting. But if we just leave it like this, there are going to be a lot of issues. Now, in order to fix this, we want to go here. So just after the string, place a comma right there and say run mode equals run mode.async. This means that whenever this command is executed, it's being executed outside of every other command. So it's given a single kind of process. It uses its own process, so it doesn't block any other task from executing. Now, when we've done this, make sure to go to Apache and start the database, because without the database it will fail to launch, because the database is something it needs to connect to, and it also needs to check the prefix. So run the database in Apache, then execute the project, let it start up, then when it's done, go to Discord, and now let's try the command. Let's say !image, and then let's mention me. Now keep in mind it might take a few seconds. It needs to execute a couple of tasks before it's finally done creating the image, but let's see if it works. Image directOr is fetching the background image, copy everything, and voila, we have generated our own image. And as you see, it's very high quality. That is thanks to the exact precision of calculating a lot of things at the time. The circle is perfect, it looks very nice, transparent, the background is very high quality, the text looks really good, and even in smaller format, it just looks perfect. And that is all thanks to the calculations that we've done. Now, we also did a few things for when someone doesn't even have a profile picture, just like our tutorial bot. Let's execute the command and see what it does. It just grabs the image from Discord and nicely puts that into the image. It looks great. It works at first launch, no issues whatsoever, and that's amazing. Now let's go back to Visual Studio, close our console. Now there's one more thing that I want to point out. If you want to use this function in a command handler, for example, to execute when someone joins your server, the nice thing is you can use this function anywhere. Just make sure that you inject it into your class, just like this, that we did right here. And you can basically use it anywhere you like. Now, another thing I want to point out is that I am very sorry that there was so many complicated things going on here. To explain this, a basic simple way is to kind of go over it by yourself, because most of the variables that we created are positioning things. They're storing the height, storing the width, making new things, the X and Y positions, the fonts, the colors, all that kind of stuff is all stored in variables. And most of the things that we did is storing these things into variables. Just a very small percentage of what we did is actually using functions that do something, that draw things on text and that kind of stuff, because we only have about 4 functions that actually make the image. But inside of those functions, so many things are going on that they might look complicated, but in fact they are not. It's just a lot of variables, a lot of information that we need in order to generate images with such high quality. And the funny thing is, you can customize this however you like. You can change the position of text, you can change the position of where the avatar is being put, you can change the size, you can change the font, you can change if it should be bold or cursive or whatever, you can change the colors, you can change so many things that it's just amazing. And even if I go here, when I for example go all the way up here, and let's go to a browser, go to Unsplash, just grab a random, any image that you see. Let's just copy this one, copy image address, replace it with this, paste it in there, run your Discord bot, go to Discord, execute the command we just created. It will work because it's made in such a way that it anticipates entirely the background. It cuts it nicely, it converts everything that you need to a nice size, and then it works good. Although this is a light background, it still looks perfect because it's such high quality. Nothing is being lost. Even if I were to go to Unsplash and then just grab an image that is not even horizontal, and I can just close this, replace the URL with the image we just picked, and then run the Discord bot and go again to Discord and say image and then my name, it will again work because it's made in precision. It translates and converts anything into a good image. And that is all thanks to such complicated calculations that we do. They are not even complicated. They just make perfection possible. And just using all of these calculations, we make images that look fabulous. We can change the image. We can allow server owners to change the background image because it doesn't matter what size they are. They will be converted into amazing backgrounds. And that is what this code is capable of doing. And that's amazing. Now, I do want to point out that in a previous episode, I said that we were going to work on ranks and all that kind of stuff. But for now, we are not going to do this in this episode because otherwise it will be way too long. But I hope to do some more customization in the next episode. For example, how you can use custom ranks, custom also roles, and for example also how we can customize the background of this image. Now if you really like customizing things, you can also make your own text, You can change the text that you like. You can even pass a different argument here. You know, say put an argument there that says if the text should be different. For example, you could say is the image a message to inform the server about someone joining or leaving the server. And if it's joining, you show this message. If it's leaving, then you show something different. Maybe try having some fun. You can change the way that images are being stored. Just try some things out, because that's how coding works. You try some things out, it might error, fix the errors, make it your own, make it amazing. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a like, and I hope to see you in episode 8. Have an amazing day, guys. Goodbye.